And hello, fellow gamers. I am back playing another game. This time it is Malaika Prehistoric Quest. This is an MSX game. It's a freeware game that was released at some kind of MSX contest back in 2006. It's a free download, so I don't have a physical copy of this, but I make an exception for stuff like freeware and shareware on my channel. So this is a cute little platformer that I have played a little bit of just to test it, but for the most part I've never really played this before, which is why this is a Jeremy Tries. And this was quite an adventure to get working. Number one, this is the first MSX game that I've played on my channel. Fucker. And number two, the computer that I'm playing this through, which is a Sony HB-F700D, which is a German computer, and thus by default it outputs at 50 Hertz, 50 frames per second. It works very, very well running at 50 frames per second, but as soon as you switch it into 60 frames per second, which is what this game requires, or at least this game scrolls the best with, suddenly the video output from that computer gets very, very weak, and my DVD Edge has problems locking onto it. So what I had to do is connect a video amplifier box thingy between the computer and the Edge, which boosts the signal, and it's almost perfect, except sometimes the video will still cut out randomly for like a quarter of a second. Oh, that was a good jump. So if the video does cut out like that during the video, you know exactly what's going on. The video amplifier box I'm using, I believe, is an Extron 580 TXI. It's something like that. Son of a penis biscuit. Man. Oh, don't ask me to push F5. Okay. F5 to continue. I say don't ask me to push F5 because I don't actually have a keyboard for this computer. The way that I'm playing this, actually, see, there goes the video cutting out. The way that I'm playing this is I downloaded a ROM image of the game, which is supposed to be either burned to a cartridge and played that way, or played in a cartridge emulator, neither of which I actually have. But I found a utility called ROM2COM, and that converts a ROM image, a cartridge ROM image, into a COM executable that is executable under MSX-DOS. And this computer does have a floppy drive in it. So basically I configured a floppy disk with MSX-DOS and put a batch file onto it that runs another utility COM program called 60HZ, or 60 Hertz. That switches the computer into 60 Hertz mode, and then the autoexec bat file then runs the COM output for this game from the ROM2COM utility. So yeah, all of the stuff that I just said, all the things that I've been saying since the beginning of the video, all of that combined together is what it took to get this game running and playable and streamable. So if I seem like kind of tired, more tired than usual, kind of exhausted, and a little bit less snarky, that's because I'm about to fall asleep. But you know, damn it, I wanted to play an MSX game on my channel, and this seemed like as good a bet as any, because I do like platformers. And despite all of that setup frustration, I'm actually kind of enjoying playing this. So far it's a pretty simple game. Not a whole lot to it, not too difficult, at least whenever you can actually jump properly. Oh, and by the way, I am playing this with an official MSX joypad as well, as it's called. It's this little teeny tiny thing right here. This is a Panasonic FS-JS220. Penis tits. don't know if you can see the top of the video. Whenever it's starting up there, you can see when it doesn't have the black border around this, when the screen is fully white, the upper left and upper right corner are flared out a little bit, and I think that is the result of the weak sync coming from the computer from changing it into 60 Hertz. And the Extron box is compensating as best as it can, but it's not producing an absolute perfect picture. Now, interestingly, when I play this game through my Philips NMS 8250, which is another MSX2 computer similar to this one, it has no problems running this game at 60 Hertz in the output without the Extron box in the middle boosting the signal, and without me having to fiddle with any of the settings on the edge. So it's something about this specific Sony computer that is having problems doing 60 Hertz. So I will have to investigate that. Perhaps there's some capacitors that I can swap out on the motherboard in the computer. Perhaps there's some capacitors or resistors even in my RGB SCART cable that I need to take out. And that last one might actually be the key thing, because the Philips MSX computer to output to my setup is just using an ordinary SCART cable with no go-between. So it could be that there's some diodes inside my Sony SCART cable that don't actually need to be in there. And that could be what's fucking up the signal. What happened? Did I get some kind of invincibility? I did! I got a Starman. Oh, come on, get the damn heart. Is it actually possible to get the heart? Don't tell me this game has inaccessible items in it. Oh, you can get it, okay. I was bitching for nothing. Which I am apt to do. That was just a bad jump on my part. So you may be wondering, if I have all those problems running this game through my Sony MSX2 computer, and I don't have those problems running it through my Philips MSX2 computer, why didn't I just play this game on the Philips? Well, that's because the video output quality on this Sony computer is actually better than my Philips computer. If I was playing it on my Philips computer, there'd be a lot of what's called jail bars, which are vertical lines in the picture, and it would look kind of like horse shit. Plus, one thing that I like to pride myself in is that all of the hardware that I use to play games on my channel is not only original hardware and real physical hardware, but it's also unmodified stock hardware. And my Philips MSX is not stock hardware anymore. I did a couple of repairs to it to fix the audio in it, and those by itself I think would be okay for my channel, but it doesn't have the original floppy drive setup in it. And I could fix that. But also, like I said, we'd have jail bars in the output, and I don't know, I'm starting to think that the effort that I went through to set this up to run on the Sony computer might not have been worth it. For the first time ever, I'm actually starting to look around at the screen and the status bar at the bottom to see what's going on down there. Rest is, of course, lives, I'm guessing. And I have a damage meter in the lower left, those hearts. And all those little diamonds I'm picking up are going onto the counter that's in the lower right. And I don't know how many of those I have to pick up, or if they're just for score. But if there's like a number that I have to pick up before I get another rest. But I picked up over 100 in the first level, and that didn't get me a new life. So it's not 100 if there is a number that you can get to get a life. Fudge fucker. God damn it. See, I'm trying to get a good jump over there onto that platform with the bloated twitching blob thing, and I'm getting too close to the edge of the platform to actually start the jump. This game does have minor collision oddities, and I think that's evidence of one of them. The other is that, you've probably noticed this by now, but the collision for these diamond things is not so good. Look at that, I'm touching two of them. You really have to get them over, like, your face, so you can eat them, I guess. I think maybe I'm just going to say fuck it to the little diamond things. Get the ones that happen to get in my way. But otherwise, piss. Otherwise I'm just going to go. Because there's some situations, like in the second level with those cannons, that have a bunch of diamonds around them. It's actually kind of hazardous to try and stick around and get all the diamonds. Because of course you risk landing on the cannon or getting shot by it. I will still stop and get the hearts, though. Because those hearts are full of blood. And that blood is delicious. So does that mean this is a game promoting vampirism? Could be. Hey, I got a second viewer. Welcome, viewer number 2. I'm playing something you've probably never seen before, and I didn't actually know existed until this afternoon. Oh, something else about this game. There's no option to run that I can tell. See, I got the invisibility power up at the same place, but I don't remember seeing an item. Fuck. And now I forgot what I was saying. Totally forgot. Just whoosh. Right out of my head. Nope. I knew that was a bad jump when I did it. Oh, game over. I'm going to give this at least one more shot. But even though I've been doing a lot of bitching in this video so far, I actually do kind of like this game. Like I said before, it's nice and simple. This is a game that I could easily just kind of veg out to. It's just engaging enough to take my mind off of things, but it's not so engaging that I get super engrossed in it. Oh, I think what I was saying before is there's no option to run in this that I can tell, and there's only one jumping height. It's not one of those games where the longer you push the jump button, the higher you go. Even the slightest tap of the jump button sends this little character rocketing up into the air. Perhaps she had some of the super beans before the game. She's being repeatedly propelled into the air by her farts. In fact, imagining it that way, this game just instantly became possibly the best game ever made. I'm not sure. Can you duck in this? No, I was pushing down and nothing's happening. I made it to the end of level 2. Kinda wish there was some different music. And I'd also like it if this used my MSX music cartridge, which it does not appear to be. Otherwise the music would be sounding very Genesis-y. Because my MSX music cartridge, it's not a cartridge that has music on it. It is a cartridge that has a music playing chip in it. So you could think of it like a sound card in a computer. And software that is written to take advantage of it can play music and sound effects through it, which are considerably higher quality than the built-in sound capabilities of the MSX computer specification. Now, something that I haven't really explained much is MSX is indeed a computer specification. It was invented by Microsoft, believe it or not. It was back in the 80s, and it specifies a number of components to use to put together a computer. And it also specifies some basic minimum hardware capabilities, like minimum amount of RAM, I believe, is one of them. At least one cartridge slot is one of them. At least one joystick port is one of them. And the pinout for the joystick port is compatible across. It is part of the standard. So what that means is that any computer manufacturer back in the 80s that wanted to make a computer that conformed to the MSX standard could. And then that meant that the end user had the choice of a vast number of MSX compatible computers that they could buy, and thus they have a choice, and any piece of software that said that it was MSX compatible would run on any MSX compatible computer. Now there's some variation in that, because there were some manufacturers that kind of bent the standard a little bit, but compatibility across all MSX computers is pretty good. There's a little bit of tweaking you have to do to get games running on various systems. Oh, this looks like the first boss. But interestingly, the disk operating system for the MSX series of computers is called MSX-DOS. Now what makes it interesting is it is very, very similar to the early versions of MS-DOS for the PC. So the command line interface is similar, the command set is similar. The executables are not cross-compatible because the executables, of course, have to be built for the specific CPU that they run on, and the MSX specification specified that the main CPU be a Z80 compatible CPU, whereas the PC used an Intel x86 compatible CPU. But otherwise, like I said, similar command set in MSX-DOS. It even still also has an autoexec bat file, which I think I mentioned before. In fact, I know I mentioned it because I was talking about how I got this game running and all the utilities that I had to chain together to get it running. Oh, piss nugget. Oh shit, I can't hit F5. And that's where it's going to end. That's going to start me all the way over at the beginning, isn't it? World 1. And now I cannot change worlds here. Son of a piss biscuit. This is... Oh, I need to get a keyboard for this. Now, unfortunately, the keyboard was not something that was standardized as part of the MSX spec. So, although most MSX computers had keyboards, and accessing the keyboard through the hardware and through the MSX BIOS was standardized across computers, how the keyboard actually physically connected to the computer was not part of the standard. And so you have computers in different form factors. Some of them had the keyboard, they were an all-in-one unit that had the keyboard built into the actual computer, which made it look similar to the Sinclair ZX Spectrum or the Amstrad CPC. And then there were computers that had a detached keyboard, where, you know, it had a keyboard that plugged in separately from the computer, which is the case with this computer, and is also the case with my Philips MSX2 as well. So for this computer, I do not have a keyboard. Still trying to track one down, but I can't use my Philips keyboard because, like I said, this keyboard interface, the physical keyboard interface, was not standardized. So they have physically different connectors, and they probably, even if I made like an adapter to try and plug it in, then the pinouts would probably be different. And even then, the hardware level protocol between the computer and the keyboard might even still be different. If anyone's watching this and they've got, if they've got a keyboard for a Sony HB-F700D that they would like to sell, post something in the comments. I would like to buy it. Oh, there is an item right there. It's that star that's in the sky. For some reason, all the times that I've been going through here, I've been thinking that that was part of the background or something. Because there's the sun up there, and there's also the clouds. So hey, thing in the sky, it's a star, so that makes sense for it to be a background, right? See, I'm trying to cover up the fact that I'm just fucking blind. Puss basket. There's actually 3 revisions of this game made, and I am playing the final revision of it. Hey, Sean's watching. Hello, Sean. He's on the live stream in the chat right now. Sean says, what game is this? This is Malaika, something like that. Anyway, Malaika Prehistoric Quest. It is a freeware MSX game. And I do like me some platformers. Especially ones that scroll smoothly like this one does. Which I've heard that getting the MSX to scroll smoothly is no small feat. In fact, because of that, many MSX games do not scroll. There are, fuck! Just stay in my dick. I think vertical hardware scrolling is part of the MSX spec, but horizontal hardware scrolling it did not become a part of the MSX spec until the third generation of the spec. So there was the MSX, then the MSX2, and then the MSX2 Plus, and then the MSX Turbo R. And the 2 Plus and the 2R were never released outside of Japan. And so those computers are fairly rare and pretty expensive. Whereas the two MSX computers that I have are both MSX2 computers. Although I think that this particular game may just be MSX first generation compatible. I don't know that it's actually using any MSX2 features. Sean says, looks like a Mario clone. Indeed it is. There were a number of these back in the day. It is a good model. I like it. Now, if you want to see a game that is a real unabashed Mario clone, look into the Great Gianna Sisters on the Amiga. Which, if I could get a physical copy of that, I would love to play it on my channel. But the story behind that game is there was so much about it that was such a blatant copy of Super Mario Brothers, specifically on the NES, that Nintendo complained about it, and it was pulled from the shelves. So any physical copies that are still out there in the hands of people right now are very rare and thus very expensive. And oddly enough, there was a port, sort of a port, of the Great Gianna Sisters to the MSX2. And I've played that a bit myself in my spare time, not on my channel because I don't have a physical copy of the game. But it actually is, it's not bad actually. It scrolls smoothly like this game, which is welcome. Has some glitching on the left and right hand sides of the screen. And some of the collision and controls are a little wonky, but not that much worse than this game. So it's still highly playable, I would say. In fact, over the past, month and a half at this point, that I've had my Philips MSX computer. The Great Gianna Sisters was kind of my benchmark game to try and test all the hardware to get it all working. Oh, fuck. See, therefore that one jump right there, I was thinking about the jumping controls in the Great Gianna Sisters. And in that game, there's a little bit more floatiness at the peak of your jump. And also in that game, it is a game where the longer you hold the jump button, the higher you go. And in that particular game, the longer the floaty point is at the top of the jump. So I was thinking of that game and the controls in that game, and I was thinking to myself, I can just hold the button a little bit longer and get a little bit more floatiness, and I can make that jump. And then I realized I was not playing that fucking game. You'd think after playing for a half hour I'd realize what game I'm playing. Piss. And that's my last rest. So, I think this is where I'm going to call it a recording, but this has been interesting, and was it worth it to set all this up? To finally stream an MSX game on my channel, yes. To do it for this game, it wasn't a bad way. It wasn't a waste of time, I'll say that. I'm glad I didn't go through all the trouble of setting it up only to play something that was like, I don't know, something I'm terrible at, like a fighting game, where I would have thrown the controller through the TV by now. But overall, yeah, this was okay. And I would like to play more MSX games in the future. If anyone watching happens to know of a good MSX2 game, preferably a side-scroller of some sort that is freeware, that you want to see me play, post something in the comments. I would love to try it out. Let's see, what else? To finish off the video, I can plug myself with a dildo. No, I can plug my channel. I am typically live streaming Monday through Thursday at about 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I always send out a notification on Twitter before I do it. You can find a link to my Twitter profile on my YouTube channel page, or you can subscribe to me on YouTube and hit the notification bell dingle dongo thingo. So, until the next time, I'll see you.